Security groups and network access control lists, or network ACLs, are types of firewalls that you can use to protect your resources on AWS. So firstly, we have the security group. Now, a security group is applied at the instance level. So each of these corresponds to an Amazon EC2 instance, so basically a virtual server in the cloud. And we can apply a security group to that instance or multiple instances to control the traffic that we allow to reach or to leave from that EC2 instance. Now, on the other hand, a network ACL applies at the subnet level. So the network ACL only restricts traffic whether it's coming in or out from the subnet. So for example, if you're sending traffic from this instance here to this one underneath, they're in the same subnet, so the network ACL won't see that traffic, but the security group will. With a network ACL, we can apply it at the subnet level, but with the security group, we can actually add instances from multiple subnets into the same security group. So we can see here we have 2 instances in security group A, 2 from this subnet and 1 from this third subnet here, and they can be public or private as well. So you can basically apply your security group to instances in any subnet. So let's go into the console and see how we create and configure security groups and network ACLs. So I'm in the AWS Management Console. Firstly, I'm going to go to network ACLs. Now we won't really be working much with these in the course. We can actually leave the default network ACL to control inbound and outbound traffic. And then we're going to use security groups to apply further restrictions. So with a network ACL, you have a set of inbound rules and a set of outbound rules. And then the network ACL can be applied to multiple subnets. So for example here, we have rules and they're processed in an order. So you can number them. So for example, the first rule is 100. You could then add in another rule and make it 200 or some other number. And then at the end, there is a deny, which means that if after processing all the rules an allow is not found, then the default deny will just basically drop the traffic. So if you want to create a rule, you can choose edit inbound rules and choose add rule. So you might choose 200, for example. You might specify a protocol like ICMP, echo reply, and then choose your source traffic and choose whether you want to allow or deny that traffic. Now I'm not going to modify this at this stage. We'll leave the network ACL configured as it is. The default rule here allows all protocols, all port ranges from any address by default inbound, and it allows the same outbound. So basically at this point, the network ACL is not restricting any traffic. However, that doesn't mean that any traffic can reach your instances, because when we create our resources, we're going to assign security groups. And a security group will deny all traffic by default. You have to choose what traffic you want to allow to your security group. Now, as you can see, we only have one security group here because we haven't launched any resources yet. So let's have a look at this security group. So this is a default security group within our VPC. And by the way, security groups are within a VPC. So you create your security groups for each VPC. So let's have a look. We have our inbound rules. And by default, this is also allowing all traffic. So the default security group will allow all traffic on all port ranges from this source. Now this source is actually the security group itself. So if we go back to our diagram, that basically means if it was this security group here, it would allow all traffic from itself. That means that this instance can send traffic to this instance, because when the security group sees it, it says, well, that traffic is coming from this security group, and therefore it will allow it. But if you try to send traffic to this security group A from security group B, that wouldn't be allowed. So back in here, we're only allowing from the security group itself. So from members of that security group, from instances that have been assigned to this security group. For outbound rules, we're also allowing all traffic outbound to any address range. So remember, this is a special type of address which means all addresses, basically, all IP addresses. So any destination you can send traffic to outbound. So for example, we could now create a rule. We might want to create an inbound rule, and maybe we have a web server which is listening on port 80. So we would choose HTTP and it would auto assign port 80 for us. And then we could choose anywhere if we wanted it to come from any IP address. So this is remember, this is the special address for any IP address, and this is the IPv6 version of the same thing. You can even choose my IP and it will give you the IP address that you're actually connecting in from. So if I wanted to allow that web server, I could just choose Save Rules, and I now have an extra rule. So in this case, I don't want to have that one. We'll create some more of these later in the course. So I'm just going to remove those rules, click on Save, and we're back to where we were. Another concept you need to understand with firewalls is stateful versus stateless. So what does this mean? So let's say we have this configuration here. We've got a client using a web browser connecting to a web server, and in the middle there's a firewall. So the client makes a connection. Now this is a web server, so it uses port 80. So the destination port is going to be port 80. So when you're making a connection, there's a destination port, but there's also a source port. So the source port is the port on the computer, and it's basically the door that you're making the connection from, with the destination port being the door that you're going in through to get to the web service. So it chooses a port for you. Your computer does that automatically. In this case, it's 65188. When the traffic reaches the web server, a separate connection comes back with the results. And in this case, the source port is port 80, the HTTP port, and the destination port is 65188. So it's sending the data back into the same port. Now, from the firewall's perspective, this is what it sees. It sees two connections. The first connection is from the source IP address, this computer, to the destination IP address, this computer, with the source port and then the destination port. Now, the other connection is the connection going back. So that comes from the web server. It's going to the client. The source port is 80 and the destination port is 65188. Now, what's the significance of this? Well, with a stateful firewall, it will allow the return traffic automatically. So if the firewall has a rule that says, I'm going to allow this traffic inbound, then it will send the outbound traffic without any further rules being required. So it doesn't require a rule that says that it allows traffic to 65188, for example. Now, a stateless firewall will check for an allow rule for both connections. Would not only need a rule that allows inbound traffic on port 80 from this computer, it would also need a rule that allows outbound traffic on 65188 to this computer. So that's a key difference. Now, in the AWS world, the security group is a stateful firewall and a network ACL is a stateless firewall. So let's have a look at a quick summary of security groups versus network ACLs. The security group operates at the interface level, whereas the network ACL operates at the subnet level. A security group allows allow rules only, and that means by default it will deny all traffic unless you create a rule to allow traffic. You don't create a rule to say I'm going to deny traffic. It just does that if you don't have an allow rule. Whereas with a network ACL, you can do both. So you can create a rule that says I'm going to allow some traffic, and you can specify a rule that explicitly denies traffic. The security group is stateful, as I explained in the previous slide, and the network ACL is stateless. A security group will evaluate all the rules and then work out what to do, whereas the network ACL processes the rules in order. Once it reaches a rule that either allows or denies, that's it, it's finished. It basically actions whatever that particular rule tells it to do. Now, with security groups, you apply them to EC2 instances and other resources in your VPC, and they'll only apply if you explicitly associate them with that particular security group. With a network ACL, it actually automatically applies to everything running in your subnets. So that's it for security groups and network ACLs for now, but we will be using security groups a lot more in the course, so you will get a great understanding of them by the end of the course.